Hello beautiful creative friends, it's Belinda and I'm back today with another new project to share with you for the Confessions of a Paper Addict design team. Today I am working with this really gorgeous new cut file. It's called Cover Me in Sunshine. I have cut it out from a pink cardstock that comes from Hip Kit Club. And I'm going to be using the reverse side of that as the border for my layout. So I'm just keeping this in here so that you can see how I'm going to achieve this. Normally, if I had a full-sized 12 by 12 sheet of paper, I would cut the middle out of it. So I'm doing the same sort of thing here. I'm leaving about a 1-inch border, but I'm just trimming off those little pieces that are sticking out in the middle. And that's going to help me to tidy up the back of the layout in just a moment, which is going to stop it from snagging on anything once I come to the point of putting it down into a page protector in an album. So I've taken my white cardstock and I've trimmed that down to 11.5 inches by 11.5 inches. And I'm using my wet adhesive to adhere this down in place. And in fact, this is a really good example here of why I use the wet adhesive, because I placed it down and then straight away noticed that it was crooked. So because I've got that little bit of drying time there available to me, I was able to just quickly lift it up and reposition it and then stick it down again. Now I've taken that over to my sewing machine and I have added a stitched border around the edge using a really pretty purple, it's sort of a lilac-y coloured thread. And I've left this bit in here just so you can see. So this is what I do on the back of all of my layouts. I don't show it in all of my process videos, but I thought this was a good one to show it to you. So to help stop that border, that cutout border from snagging in the page protector, I've got, this is actually a purple painter's tape. So this is available from Bunnings in Australia, which is a hardware store, and it's a painter's tape. So it's low tack and I use it for lots of different things in my scrapbooking process. It's not acid free, but I'm not concerned about that because it is going behind 2 layers of cardstock and paper on each of my layouts. So I'm not super concerned about it not being acid free in that scenario. Now I wanted to add just a little bit of mixed media behind the wreath design of this cut file. So I've grabbed out my Liquitex Gold acrylic ink and a really fine paintbrush. I was going to use the compass to draw a circle around the outside, but then I realized I probably didn't really need to do that. I've got a pretty good idea of exactly where the cut file is going to go. And I just want to add a little bit of splatters, so the positioning is not super important. So I am going to go and use this fine paintbrush to add some splatters in a rough circle around where I think the cut file is going to go. And then I will bring the cut file in just a moment, just to check to see that I've got enough coverage there. And then I'll come back in and I'll add a little bit more. So this cut file, I absolutely adore it. If you know anything about me and what I like to create, you will know that I love wreath designs and I love florals. And this cut file is just so pretty and so sweet and so delicate. And it's absolutely perfect for this photo of my little girl. This was taken in 2018, so she would have been not quite 3 years old, I think, January 2018. So she was about coming up to 2.5. At the time that I took this photo, I thought she looked so grown up. And in fact, looking at it now, it probably resembles her more as an 8-year-old now. But yeah, it was just such a sweet, such a cute little photo, a gorgeous little smile. I don't have any journaling to go with this page. It's just going to be one of those just because layouts. I've got lots of sweet, cute little photos of the kids that don't have a particular story behind them. Sometimes I will find some quotes to add, so it's kind of, the layout sort of becomes a bit of a message from me to them. Other times I'm happy just to document the photo and get some pretty products down and have a bit of a play, and that's what this layout is all about. So I have trimmed down, when I printed out the photo, I did print it out with a white border, but I like the added dimension that a cardstock border adds to my photos. So I've trimmed it down. I've added a really thin white mat behind the photo with just some plain white cardstock. I chose that orangey coloured patterned paper to match the photo. And then I've got this really interesting print, which is a whole bunch of tags layered over the top of each other. But I didn't want to just place the photo down on that and have it just be a flat photo mat. So I'm grabbing out some of my border punches. I'm going to use this notebook edge, and that's going to be sitting along the left-hand side of the photo. So I trimmed it down to the height that I wanted. Then I'm going to punch the border, use the border punch to punch that notebook edge. While I was at it, I really liked the color that was on the branding strip on the reverse side of that patterned paper. So I've grabbed this scallop border punch. This is just a plain scallop border punch. And I'm going to punch along the length of that 12-inch piece. And then I'm going to trim it down, and that's going to be another little layering element that is going to sit behind my photos. This scallop border punch is actually brand new to my collection. A long time ago, I used to have a lot of border punches, and then at some point during a destash, when border punches were sort of not really very trendy, I got rid of all of them. And then not too long afterwards, I realized that I actually really liked using border punches and I really wanted them. So I've slowly been adding more border punches back into my stash. It feels like such a waste, but it did teach me a really valuable lesson about destashing and about the kind of things that I want to destash. So I think a little bit more carefully about destashing tools now than I used to, because I know that border punches they're a lot harder to find now than they used to be. And there were some that I had which I just will never be able to get back again. So I'm a little bit more careful about what I'm destashing these days. So at first I thought that I was going to place that scalloped piece on the right hand side of the photo, but instead I decided to just use it as another little layering element on the left-hand side of the photo. So I'm trimming it down so that I can tuck it in. Because I have added a fair bit of adhesive already to those photo layers, and because I wanted that scallop to be in quite deep, I do have to pull it up a little bit here just to nestle that scallop in far enough, because I don't want it to overlap over the top of the notebook border punch. Otherwise you just completely lose the effect of having that notebook border punch. So it's just a really subtle sort of peekaboo little element that is adding some visual interest and just a little bit of extra dimension to the left hand side of that photo. So while I have been working on the photo, my background paper has been drying, off to the side drying. And I'm just about ready to start adhering this cut file down, but I want to pop off the sweet little flowers. So I'm just adding these really small square foam squares. Square foam squares, they're not round foam squares, are they? I'm adding these really small foam squares to the center of each of the flowers. Then I'm going to take off the backing and I'm going to adhere that down onto the background page. And then what I've done, just to help secure it in place a little bit better, is I've gone back to my sewing machine with that same beautiful purple thread, and I have added just a little bit of messy stitching and in the same spot, because it's the design of the wreath has repeated elements going around the wreath. So I've just added that stitching to the same spot in each space of the wreath. And I will come in and add some embellishments over the top of those, but I really like the texture that it adds, and I really like that it gives the whole cut file a little bit of dimension without having it be sitting like flat across the page, if that makes sense. I have added some foam to the back of the photo. This is craft foam, but the craft foam that I have in my stash is actually really quite thin. It's not one of the thicker foams, and I prefer that to the thick foam because it doesn't make my pages too bulky, which is really important for me. Down here in Australia, scrapbook albums are still very expensive and storage space is really limited in my house, so I'm trying to squeeze in as many layouts as I possibly can into each of my albums. So the products that I'm using on this project, I am still making my way through an older Hip Kit club. So the papers are from Hip Kit Club, and the embellishments that I'm using for this one are from Simple Stories, and it's the Simple Vintage Life in Bloom collection. So I had this little, I think it's a page kit, I think they're called. It's a little package that comes with a title and a few embellishments, and if you flip it over, it's got a page design on the back of it, so you could just use it exactly as designed to create. I think it's actually a double page layout, but I thought this was a really great way of just having a ready-made set of embellishments for a page. And of course that title Beautiful was just perfect for this photo, but I did want to add a little bit more. So I've gone through my stash and I've found these, they're kind of a coppery gold. So they really match quite well with the Liquitex ink. They're not like a bright yellow gold. They are really more of an orangey coppery gold. They're quite old, so I have added some wet adhesive behind them when I'm sticking them down. And now that's just created the title, which is Beautiful Girl. I know, very simple, very basic, very cliched, but it absolutely works. I've also stamped my date using a Felicity Jane date stamp onto some white cardstock. I've trimmed that out, and I already knew that I was going to use these little embellishment pieces. So these are actually from the cut apart sheet that comes in the Project Life kit from Hip Kit Club. And I'm just layering those pieces up there to the top left of the photo to create quite a simple little cluster there. And then I'm going to grab some of these really gorgeous floral pieces, but always wanting to maximize my floral embellishments. I'm definitely cutting that one right down the center, and I'm going to use half of it on one side and half of it on the other side of the photo. I've added some really thin foam tape to the outside of those foliage and floral pieces just to help to give it a little bit of a lift off the page. And then I'm using some wet adhesive for the part of that embellishment or that die cut that is going to sit tucked in between the layers of the photo. So I'm just creating 2 embellishment clusters here on this one on either side of the photo. This typically tends to be what I do with my layout. I'm either going to be creating 2 embellishment clusters to sort of frame a photo, or I will be creating in following like a rule of 3 design. So I'll be creating 3 different embellishment clusters around the page, creating a visual triangle. But for this one, I'm just creating those 2 little embellishment clusters, but then to add just that little bit extra, I'm grabbing some of these beautiful butterflies that came in the Simple Stories collection, and I'm going to place those around the wreath. So some of them are going to sit around about where those messy stitch pieces are. Some of them are going to sit around some of the little florals. I've also grabbed 2 different designs of butterflies. So I've grabbed 2 of the butterflies which are sort of looking down on them from above, and then 2 of the butterflies are sort of side on view, mid-flight butterflies. But in each case, I'm doing the same thing. I am using those little foam squares and placing those behind the butterfly wings to give those a little bit of lift off the page. And then I'm using my wet adhesive to add to the body of the butterfly, and then just using my little pokey tool there to adhere that down flat on the page. And doing that, it gives those butterflies such a lovely sense of movement, and it really does make them look as though they are mid-flight with those wings lifted off the page and the bodies stuck firm down on the background. It's a lovely effect. So once I've got those butterflies down, I think the only thing that I have left to do is to add my little bits of splatters and scatters to finish off. Now, in actual fact, for this one, I have got a sheet of rub-ons, and I could not even tell you the last time that I used rub-ons. But in this collection, it comes with some really sweet little floral pieces. They're like little buds that have come off some flowers. So I cut out a few of those. I was looking for sort of some balance of colors. Just going to place those around the wreath, and then I'm going to grab a little tool and I'm going to stick those down. It's such a sweet little detail, and I really, really love that the kind of whimsical feel that it adds to the layout. It's a really pretty way to finish off. And once I've got those down, the only thing that I have left to do is to bring in some Nuvo drops. And for this one, I chose a glitter drop. Again, it's in a more of a coppery gold kind of color. So I'm just going to add those glitter drops in a few different places, and then that will be it for the layout. Of course, I do have some close-up photos coming in just a moment if you'd like to stick around for those. But I do hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, I'd love for you to go ahead and leave me a comment or give me a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and join me on my upcoming paper crafting adventures. But I will leave it there for now and say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.